Analysis of the men's draw US Open 2025. Alcaraz coincides with Djokovic and Shelton. Sinner with Draper and Zverev. Facebook, Twitter, Commentarios. We reveal by quadrants who the potential rivals of the title favorites in New York are, with special attention to Alcaraz, Sinner, and Djokovic. The last Grand Slam of the season is about to kick off. After the sun in Melbourne, the clay of Paris, and the grass of Londres, it is now time for the hustle and bustle of New York. The US Open is gearing up for 2 weeks filled with tennis, great matches, surprises, and disappointments. Jannik Sinner and Aryna Sabalenka are defending their titles, but if they want to keep their crowns, it won't be an easy task. In the case of the Italian player, all eyes are on him, despite his withdrawal from the final of the ATP Cincinnati. The world number one is required to claim his second major title in New York if he doesn't want to see Carlos Alcaraz dethrone him from the top of the rankings. If the Spaniard manages to lift the trophy on September 7th, he will regain the world crown, and it seems that both will compete for the title in a hypothetical final, as it already happened in Roland Garros and Wimbledon. Although everyone talks about these two, one should never rule out Novak Djokovic. The 24-time Grand Slam champion eagerly awaits one last major title to surpass Margaret Court and become the most decorated tennis player of all time. Jannik Sinner's path looks interesting. While he has a smooth start against Vit Capriva in the second round, he could face Alexei Popyrin, who eliminated Novak Djokovic in the same round last edition. Then, in the third round, Denis Shapovalov is a likely contender. In the third round, he would face players like Alexander Bublik, who defeated him in Halle, or Tommy Paul. In the quarterfinals, he might meet his compatriot Lorenzo Musetti or last year's New York semi-finalist, Jack Draper. Meanwhile, the semi-finals could see names like Alexander Zverev or Alex de Minaur. On the other hand, Jack Draper has a much smoother start, facing a qualifier or lucky loser in the first round, and Zizou Bergs or Sang in the second round. But from the third round onwards, things get more challenging if he crosses paths with Gabriel Diallo. This would be followed by Lorenzo Musetti in the fourth round, and in the quarterfinals, he could potentially face Jannik Sinner. Alexander Zverev, now under Tony Nadal's guidance, seeks his first Grand Slam at the place where he reached the final in 2020. He will start against Alejandro Tabilo, possibly face Roberto Bautista in the second round, and a tough third-round match against Auger Aliassime or Gael Monfils. In the round of 16, he might encounter Andrei Rublev, and in the quarterfinals, Alex de Minaur or Karen Khachanov. The semi-finals could bring a matchup with Jannik Sinner. Alex de Minaur will start this US Open like the rest of the Grand Slams, quietly but aiming to surprise until the end. The Washington champion will begin in New York against Christopher O'Connell. Challenges may arise in the third round against a struggling Stefanos Tsitsipas. Moving to the round of 16, he could contend with Karen Khachanov or Fran Cerundolo. If he reaches the quarterfinals, he would face Alexander Zverev or Andrei Rublev. Overcoming these opponents could lead to a showdown with the world number one in a hypothetical final. Novak Djokovic will have a much smoother start, training against Lerner TN and facing a qualifier in the second round. It's from the fourth round onward that competitors like Holger Rune or Francis Tiafoe could pose a challenge. In the quarterfinals, he might meet Taylor Fritz or Jakub Mensik, who defeated him in the Miami final, and in a hypothetical semifinal, Carlos Alcaraz and Ben Shelton. Taylor Fritz will also begin his initial rounds comfortably. The runner-up of the previous edition will debut against compatriot Emiliano Nava. But in the third round, a tough match could be against Brandon Nakashima, with a real challenge starting in the round of 16 against Jakub Mensik or Tomas Makak. In the quarterfinals, he could face Novak Djokovic or Holger Rune, and in the semifinals, possibly Carlos Alcaraz or Ben Shelton. Carlos Alcaraz's journey in the Big Apple begins against a tough opponent, to say the least. The Spaniard will face the always challenging Riley Opelka in his debut. However, opponents might ease up in the second and third rounds, but in the round of 16, he could encounter Daniil Medvedev or his good friend Alejandro Davidovich. In the quarterfinals, he could face Ben Shelton, one of the in-form rivals at the moment, or Casper Ruud, whom he defeated in the final of his only title in New York. In a hypothetical semi-final, he would battle against Novak Djokovic, Taylor Fritz, or Holger Rune. Ben Shelton, after an initial round against a qualifier or lucky loser and a second round against Pablo Carreño, would face challenges against Corentin Moutet or Talon Griekspoor in the third round, and against Casper Ruud or Jiri Lehecka in the round of 16. But the real test would come in the potential quarterfinals against Carlos Alcaraz and in the semifinals against Novak Djokovic.